Kat Abughazaleh is running for Congress, challenging longtime incumbent Jan Schakowsky in Illinois' 9th District. Needless to say, Kat doesn't look, sound, or act like your typical candidate. Her announcement video led with the simple question, what if we didn't suck? She called on Democrats to, quote, drop the excuses and grow a fucking spine, and has made it clear she's not interested in playing it safe, while Donald Trump and Republicans steamroll the country. In her words, while current Democratic leadership might be fine cowering to Trump, I'm not. One of my favorite parts of her digital program so far, and it's early, her website lists anti-endorsements, which include personal attacks leveled against her from Elon Musk, libs of TikTok, and Tucker Carlson. Epic. She's also doing something I've never seen before from any political campaign. She's prioritizing Blue Sky as her primary platform. She's not just hedging her bets on Twitter. She said during her launch, quote, I'm prioritizing Blue Sky this election, not only because it's more ethical, but because it just makes sense, which is fascinating to me. So yeah, let's start there. First of all, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. And I'd love to hear why Blue Sky, why does it just make sense, and how's it going so far?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And also, no one's asked me this, and so I'm really excited to talk about it.
Hell yeah.
I mean, I think we all know what's wrong with Twitter or X now. I mean, it's a cesspool. The algorithms are being gamed to, make Elon Musk the main thing people see, but also to prioritize conservative voices over all else. And especially things that get people angry, which if you've looked at Twitter nowadays, you'll probably see a slur next time you log on. Blue Sky is trying things a bit differently. First off, they're adding moderators as Meta and X cut down on them. Also, it's open source, so there's a lot of transparency, and my campaign is very much focused on transparency, so that's really important to me. It's also growing really fast. When it first started, when it was invite only, it was kind of this small circle, but there are tons of people on there now, and they're posting more and more growth every single month. It's really exciting. Also, there are a bunch of features that just make sense from a user experience standpoint. For example, their use of starter packs, or one of my favorite feeds that you can do on there is a gift link feed. So whenever someone posts a gift link to any outlet to, bypass a paywall, it goes into that feed, even if you don't follow them. So you can click there and just kind of read what people thought was important enough to share to use one of their monthly gift links. It just makes sense. I like an algorithm that's chronological instead of only serving specific people with no transparency on how that's done. And I appreciate a place that bans people when they threaten to rape me.
So on that front, yeah, you're still posting on Twitter also. So can you, and obviously I agree with everything you just said. And I didn't know that the gift link feed, I'm on a bunch of feeds. So that's a cool one. I'll have to check that out. Yeah. But you are still posting on Twitter. So can you talk about the different reactions and like the different engagement you're getting across the two platforms?
Oh yeah, this is such a fascinating question. Once again, thank you for asking it.
We call this an exclusive right here on March Tech.
Social media is not really optional for political campaigns anymore. Sure. And so while we are posting everywhere, Blue Sky is where I post first. And if you want the most up-to-date news on the campaign or what I think on a topic, that's where you'll find it first. And in some cases, the only place you'll find it, because there are spots where you just won't see an article because news organizations have left Twitter in droves. Yeah. It's so fascinating seeing the reactions, the difference in reactions between Threads, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. For example, today, GQ released a profile about me, and there were a lot of different and diverse comments under the Blue Sky and Instagram comment section. And a lot of them were, nice, and then some were asking questions, and some were opposed, but there wasn't really anything disgusting. And on Twitter, when you go on there was a lot of stuff about sexualizing my armpits, because you could see them in a picture, as well as people debating whether I was too Palestinian or too Jewish, which I am not Jewish, by the way. But yeah, so like Twitter, because a lot of the people that are on there every day that use it as their main platform are dudes that are upset about the 4chan leaks. Yeah. Weird slurs I've never heard about Palestinians before. I am just fascinated, though, because everyone there, of course, you have normal accounts. Let me rephrase that. I am fascinated, though, because there are so many anti-Semites that are just outwardly praising Hitler, which is disgusting, awful. Once again, it's a cesspool. But they can't decide if they hate Jewish people or Arabs more. And so they just argue all the time of which one I am. And it's just fascinating. Like when you take a step back and you remove the I want to throw upness of it, because I can't be throwing up all the time. I have a limited amount of bile. There should be psychological studies into that.
Oh, it's a lot. I mean, I see it obviously. Like I scroll all the platforms every day, and I see it. But I imagine you see it differently. As somebody who a photo comes out of you and people are talking about your armpits, like that is not my experience on Twitter. But I am very aware that it is the experience for far too many, and it's a huge problem. So on that front, like what changes or updates would you like to see to Blue Sky moving forward? As somebody who's really prioritizing it as like, what you were doing is a very big ad for them in a lot of ways, like the first congressional campaign to say, I'm going to prioritize your platform. Are there any tools you would like to see them invest in? I know they are increasing moderation, but like, is it enough? Are they keeping up? Like, how are you feeling about it?
Look, no platform is going to be perfect. But I really appreciate the effort they're putting into it and that they are genuinely trying. And it seems like a good faith attempt. And I mean, hiring more moderators when everyone else is like, we're getting rid of them because they're too feminine. That says a lot. There are some user experience things I'd like to see that I'm sure they're working on, of being able to send pictures and DMs and things like that, group chats. But I'm very happy with the Blue Sky experience, especially because all of these Twitter copies emerged after Musk bought it, and most of them have fallen short. Yeah.
Okay. I totally. So I think it's fair to say you're running a digital first campaigin.
I'd actually disagree with that.
Okay, tell me why. Walk me through it.
The digital game is definitely a part of it. I mean, it helped with announcing, it helped get the word out. But I think what I've been most frustrated with politics is how impersonal it is. And so we're trying to make it accessible and personal again. So our ground game is our focus. This is a ground game centered campaign. We're trying to go everywhere in the district. We don't want to leave anyone behind, including demographics that don't traditionally vote in primaries. I think that's an issue of the party not giving them to vote something to vote for. And so digital is great for organizing. I mean, we have our Discord server for volunteers. It's very helpful. There are so many resources you can use, but there's nothing that really replaces that in-person connection. I mean, I think we've learned that since COVID. A lot of us are just disparate and disconnected. So that's why, I'm holding office hours, and we're trying to hold them in every part of the district, not just Chicago, Evanston, and Skokie, like the main population centers, but also the parts that were gerrymandered into the district that are further out west in traditionally red areas. Talking with college students, we're trying to make our events also less political or cringy. I mean, on Sunday, I'm going to be holding a knitting circle at a local brewery. And it's just anyone can come, and we can just sit around and put our phones down, do something with our hands, and chat. It doesn't even have to be about the campaign. We want to do concerts and stand-up events. It doesn't cost $500, $1,000, $5,000 to go to one of our fundraisers or campaign events. Our kickoff event, for instance, the price of entry was a box of pads or tampons, and that went to Chicago's Period Collective for people who can't afford them. We want all of our events to be like that, a small material donation that anyone can provide, like soap for shelters, diapers for struggling families, pet food for animal rescues, things like this. So yeah, this is the digital part. Like our comms team, our social media team, it's just me. I'm just posting how I normally would, and I'm trying to run a campaign that's like that, where it's just, this is me. And if voters like it, they'll vote for it. And we want to make sure that by the end of this election, every single person in the district, especially with how we're spending money on mutual aid and community outreach as opposed to consultants and a shit ton of TV ads, we want every single person in this district or someone they directly know to have had their lives improved by our efforts.
I love that. Yeah, I was going to ask specifically about the in-person office hours. Like, I love that. I've pushed numerous campaigns to do that. Some have, most haven't, because it's hard to like organize and to get out there and like to sit at a coffee shop for 2 hours, whether or not people show up. At a congressional level, it's probably easier to get folks show up. Maybe like a lot of the folks I work with are like very down ballot, and the reach is harder. But I am really curious, like, how are those going? Do you have trolls showing up? Like, you obviously have hateful people in your comments. Are those people coming and finding you in real life, or is it all like people who are like genuinely curious and want to learn more?
Yeah, mostly people that are genuinely curious.
Cool.
I genuinely have not had a single negative interaction since starting this campaign. Even once again in Algonquin, which is where we spent the hands-off protests, because that's in the district. We were invited out there. A lot of them don't feel represented since that part was gerrymandered into this district. And that's like there were people that brought out their Trump lawn signs and wrote like "not anymore." It was more than 3,000 people standing outside this Jewel Osco with car horns constantly honking in support. Wow. And a lot of them like aren't super online, didn't know me. And I just went around and asked her, I was like, what do you care about? Why are you out here? What do you wish Democrats would be doing differently? And then when I told them I was running for Congress, they were interested. They were very receptive. And I had some people come to office hours. Combative's not the right word, but they had very specific questions and they really wanted a straight answer. And that's the only type of answer I'm good at giving. Sure. But very respectful. And I think it's just so indicative of how when it comes to saying stuff to your face or proving that we're people, the online experience doesn't reflect reality. There's a lot of ways that the digital world is a part of the, meat space, as the hyper online call it. But there's a lot of stuff that when you meet someone in person, you're like, oh, yeah, you're also a person. Yeah. And I think people appreciate that. We've had our last office hours. We actually had so many people show up that it was a problem. And the coffee shop was like, guys, we need some of these seats. And our virtual office hours today, we have people signed up to come on stream to talk with me. And I just want things to be really transparent, really public. And I've appreciated people sharing all their thoughts. We talked about everything from like tariffs to cycling safety.
That's awesome. And it's really good to hear. And I think, I know right now, Republicans are not holding town halls, and like my Congressman Mark Pocan is like very actively like going out of his way to go to Republican areas. But I think, Democrats and Republicans both have like not always done the best job of showing up for like unscripted, open conversations. So I know like you talked about wanting to be the most accessible campaign like around. So I love, I think it's a really cool way to like bring that to life. And I think it's really helpful to hear somebody who is like, you are obviously so online, like as a person, that's not following you offline. Because my guess is a lot of folks with much smaller followings and much less notoriety than you do worry about such things. So hearing that you can like have all the trolls on Twitter and then still show up at a local coffee shop in a redder part of your district without being harassed is probably like helpful context for folks who might be like worried to do it themselves. That's my guess. I don't know. It's hard to know.
100%. And like, I think a lot of things is, like I grew up Republican, I grew up in Texas, and I think a lot of people that are especially like lifelong liberals or Democrats, it's difficult to understand just how effective propaganda and like this system that has been built around propaganda is. Ignorance, its effects are negative, but its existence is value neutral. Someone doesn't know something, you can't fault them for not knowing that thing. How are they supposed to search to learn about that thing if they don't know it exists? So just talking to voters like real people, that's how we refocus this instead of left and right, red and blue, around like working class versus the ultra rich. It's otherwise, like from an electoral strategy, you're leaving voters on the table, but from a moral standpoint, it's just what you should do.
Yeah, no, I love it. I'm very active on TikTok and I do a lot of like political posts, but a lot of it is about trying to like bring people along. And I would say like, it's okay to not know things. I don't know things, and I work in this field and I live in this field, and it's like hard to keep up. So it's like, I feel like it's my job for my audience to like keep up so I can like bring them along and like we can learn together. People ask me questions, and like, I think it's really easy to forget that you're not there to like, if you're making people feel bad for not knowing stuff, you have lost the thread. Like the job is to like bring them along. It's really hard to keep up with politics. It's changing constantly. So I love that idea of like, and I mean, so much like we'll get to like, I'm really curious about how your Media Matters works affects what you're doing today, but like so much of your job is processing the news and like sharing it with people. So, but before we get there, I had a couple more quick questions on like more of like the process. So you've said specifically you're planning not to run ads on cable news, which I actually don't think is that controversial, but it seems like it's been pretty controversial for you. So can you talk more about like what's been the reaction to that? Are people like losing their minds that you're like giving up on the demo of 65 plus? Like how are people feeling?
The first day we launched, we got a lot of feedback from people in the district that said that they were concerned about that. So I want this to be, an adaptable, dynamic campaign. Like we get feedback, we want to consider it. So now I'm not saying no cable ads for sure. We're going to try to assess the best way we could deploy them, but we want to focus our money on our mutual aid and outreach in-person efforts. But I don't want to just sign it off, especially when so many voters in the district were concerned about that.
Interesting.
But I'm a little bit biased. Like you said, I work for Media Matters. I being exposed to political ads constantly and having to analyze them on this very micro level. I might be a little bit jaded. That might be a me issue. But we reached so many people with my announcement video, which I made for $0 in the exact same chair and the exact same spot I'm talking to you now.
Yeah, exactly. I recognize it well, for sure.
Yeah. And frankly, I can't wait till I move in a couple months and I don't have to have this color of wall from my landlord behind me. But I think that even with TV ads, if we do that, there has to be like a different way to frame them. We don't just have to do the same old, because if we continue doing that, we'll get stuck in this cycle, and what Democrats are doing obviously isn't working. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this mess.
Fair enough. So you have large followings on TikTok and Instagram. It seems like you're not prioritizing them right now. Is that just lack of bandwidth? Like you mentioned that you're doing your own social and there's only so many hours in the day. Or are there other reasons? Like I know you're prioritizing Blue Sky, but like you have very large followings on TikTok and Instagram, but it seems like you're not posting very often. Is that a decision or just decided for you by hours in the day and you don't even have time to do anything else?
Yeah, it's the latter.
Eat, because you stopped to eat before this.
Yeah, I made us delay the podcast by 5 minutes.
Exactly.
So I was like, can I just scarf down these tacos? It's the latter for sure.
Okay.
This is one thing that I struggle with. Like, say my campaign manager will be like, you don't need to spend so much time on a video, and even like shaving off like 30 minutes or whatever. But I very much care about the quality of work I put out, even if it is something that's short and sweet, and that extra 30 minutes to make sure that it's good, that I'm not just feeding slop to people that trust what I have to say is important to me. But even without that, like the first 3 weeks of this campaign has just been the support, unbelievable, incredibly moved. We've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars with just grassroots donors. We have over 1,000 volunteer signups. People on our Discord are in the hundreds. It's amazing, but it's also a lot. And so we've just kind of been setting up campaign infrastructure. We're currently trying to hire a field director. If you're interested in applying for that, you can go to Sam's page, Sam Weinberg, and find the application. But yeah, no, it's just I only have so many
on Blue Sky. Like where?
All of them.
Okay. Anywhere. Sam Weinberg.
Anywhere. Also, Cat for Illinois.com
on your website
jobs,
too, right?
I think.
Yeah. I saw it on the announcement on your site.
Yeah, I forgot about that link. But yeah. But so I only have so many hours a day, and video does take more time. And
for sure,
I need to find a video editor for just like quick hits that I can trust to send my stuff off to. But I have a specific style that like I don't want to be too hi-fi. Like the way that I clip and myself and others is on purpose, because I think things should be more accessible, more authentic, and spending a ton of time on effects and things like that when they're not needed, but they might be a little bit flashier. It's just not really my style. It's also really mortifying, the idea of sending raw footage of myself saying the same line 5 different times to someone and telling them to pick it. That's my actual nightmare. And I know I'll have to get over that, but oh my God.
Fair. I actually find, like I mentioned, I do a lot of TikTok. I actually find the more production I put in, the less it seems to perform. People don't like I always say, like, nobody wants to see a car commercial online, and if it looks too glitzy, they move on. And so I do think part of why your video cut through was it felt very different than the typical announcement video of them walking with their kid or, standing in front of their church, which I've seen some great ads like that. Yours did not feel like that. And yours, it went viral in the best possible way in a time when it's very hard to go viral right now. Like everything is so busy, and you still manage to cut through. So I think there's a lesson in that. Whether or not folks take that lesson, is up to them. But on that note, if you could run a digital training for congressional Democrats right now, what would you focus on?
Like people that are in Congress?
Yeah, the current members of Congress, Democrats in Congress. What would be your pitch to what? Forget about this campaign. Obviously, your opponents
but in
there.
general, I've actually been asked by congressional Democrats about the right and social media strategy, and then I tell them stuff, and then they don't listen. But if they actually were listening, I would say, look, if you're posting, it's only reaching a few thousand people. That's not your constituents' fault. It's yours. It's not your fault if you're 60 and are fluent in online speak, or what type of cuts and what type of videos matter, but you need to be hiring someone that does. And you also can't be trying to control what they do all the time. I was one of the 200 credentialed creators at the BNC. And one thing among a lot of the creators that we agreed on was, unless you were ready to beforehand commit firmly to saying whatever the party wanted you to, you pretty much got no access. And that's one of the things that makes the rights media ecosystem works so well, is that they're willing to criticize their own party. You do have these different lines of thought. It doesn't feel like it was produced in a lab, at least, you know, from appearances. It depends on the creator, of course. But yeah, just that authenticity, the word's so overused today, but if you can actually find someone that can do that for you, that can help you bring your real self to the people, if your real self is, you know, someone that people want to know,
sure,
there's nothing better you could do.
Okay. Yeah. Super helpful advice for the 60 plus crowd who are in DC trying to connect better with their constituents by, you know, tweeting out press releases and whatnot currently. So I'm a huge fan of Media Matters. I've known Media Matters for years. Give the 30,000 foot view for anybody who, my guess is everybody listening to this podcast knows Media Matters, but give the like one sentence summation. But mostly what I want to know is, what did you learn during your time with Media Matters that you wish every American understood today?
Oh God, you have the best questions. Can I come on here like next week? This is
you
so much
literally
fun.
Can come on whenever you want.
Amazing.
I will write all new questions next week. Absolutely.
So Media Matters is a nonprofit media watchdog. The team there focuses on misinformation, and that's especially focused in the right, because that's where the biggest threat is. My specific team watched Fox News every night. And so I was the Tucker Carlson girl. That was my specialty, was Tucker Carlson in the 5 every day, 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. I and 5 others just watched Fox News. We have trauma bonded in a way very few can explain.
Yeah.
I thought growing up in Texas, and like I used to do a stand-up bit about the 5 in college, like I thought I was pretty well versed in Fox. No, there's so much lore. There's a whole cinematic universe that you don't know unless your job is to watch Fox News.
I was gonna say, it's a living.
Or
right,
you sit in a recliner all day and watch Fox News. Those are the only 2 people that know all this lore.
Yeah.
What I would say though is kind of going back to that propaganda point. They are a billions-dollar operation for a reason. It's because their message is wrong. It's because it's against the interest of their own viewers. And so they had to capitalize on fear. And fear is it's our most innate feeling. I mean, that's our brainstem, is just fear. And Rupert Murdoch and Peter Thiel and all these people wouldn't have to pour billions and billions of dollars into convincing people to go against their own interests if that was truly the right move, if that was truly what was best for anyone besides Rupert Murdoch and Peter Thiel. That fear is real. There are always people that are just racist, sexist, homophobic, horrible, but there are a lot more people that have only been subjected to a constant cacophony of scary bullshit for their entire lives. And now we have this opening where it's like, oh, you have to admit, like, there are things in your life that are being directly negatively impacted by Trump. And instead of saying told you so, as tempting as that might be,
sure.
I mean, personally, I don't find it tempting. I don't like when people get hurt in general, but I know that for some people, there's a little bit of like schadenfreude there. If you actually want to get new voters, try just helping get that puncture through reality. Like, my puncture was living in Tucson, seeing poverty among my friends for the first time, because I'd only lived in Dallas, which is very economically segregated. And I was like, oh, so poverty isn't something that you can just save your way out of. It isn't poor people's fault.
Right.
And I didn't think of poor people in a negative way. Like, it was just a reality of life that I accepted as a small child. And then at like 15, I was like, oh. And from there, I started reading. From there, I started exploring. And now I'm whatever they're calling me, woke, left, radical, Marxist, Antifa, whatever bullshit.
Okay.
So yeah, just keep that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So on that front, Republicans are obviously awful, elected Republicans specifically, but they have been really successful at controlling every narrative everywhere. And you've talked about why, like money, like they spend billions. And also, I think this is something I talk about a lot, like the progressive movement has fallen way behind in investing in our content creators and giving them the freedom to like be themselves while also like eventually getting there. Like Republicans don't have a script that they have to follow. Like Charlie Kirk can be whatever kind of awful he wants to be. The money keeps coming and he'll be on party message eventually, but like he can do that however he wants. But I am curious, like they've also been really good at controlling the narrative now on social media. What did Democrats do to combat that? Like you mentioned the idea of like puncturing, which I really like it's like a micro solution, but like any other ways that you would like to see us as a party or us as a movement, let's say, fight back against this like narrative control that Republicans seem to have on every facet of our lives these days?
Yeah, I mean, part of the thing about funding progressive creators, and sorry if you can hear the paper bag, my cat has somehow found another paper bag to step on top of.
No worries.
But I mean, the right
cat-friendly podcast for sure.
A cat and cat.
Exactly.
The right has the money. I mean, progressives aren't the ones with trillions of dollars in total in between PACs and billionaires. I mean, you can scream about George Soros all day, but like this, there is reliance on more establishment or institutional liberal places or people, and they're unwilling to give up control of what they think is a winning narrative. And it might have been a winning narrative in 1992, James Carville, but it's not anymore. So that's part of it, is being willing, like you said, to invest in these creators and in the online space. I mean, the amount of people that have called me an influencer rather than talking about my research and original reporting, it just shows a fundamental misunderstanding of new media. It sounds outdated. It's just, if there's, this is where we are, whether you like it or not, for better or worse, this is where we are. But another part is that Republicans control the narrative because Democrats often let them. Mm-hmm. They're always reacting, and you can't always be reacting. Otherwise, you're letting them set the terms. You're letting Republicans say, this is what reality is. And there's this also insistence that everyone's acting in good faith, and they're just not. Democrats need to be better at discerning that and not treating every argument as equal. I used to have this bit in stand-up where I said, you know, if half the country wants to exterminate all racial minorities and the other half of the country wants to exterminate exactly 0 racial minorities, you don't compromise and murder 50% of racial minorities. That's not how that works.
Right.
So not giving, not pretending like these arguments are legitimate. Don't give them legitimacy, because they're not. I mean, the closest we came to this was Walz, when the 2 weeks he got to be off leash, saying that Republicans are weird. The most effective post I've had about a news story since Trump took office was one where I just didn't like write a bunch of words, didn't equivocate, didn't say, well, this side, blah, blah, blah. It was when Nintendo said that Switches wouldn't allow pre-orders in the US. And I just quote tweeted it, and I put all lowercase, no Nintendo because Trump, frowny face. And the response I got from people across the political spectrum was feral. And that type of messaging works because, I mean, it's true. It ties it exactly back to Trump, which is what it is. I mean, this is his lunatic tariff plan. And you don't have to pretend like it's anything but that. So yeah, I guess that's the advice I get. Just like cut through the bullshit. Stop reacting. These people don't have your or their voters' best interests in mind.
Is party leadership ignoring you, trying to like work with you? Like how, I mean, I know you're like primary and incumbent potentially. She might, I mean, I don't even think she's announced, right, that she's running. So like, but like, are they freaking out? Like they don't know what to do with you, or they're just like, it's like you don't exist and they just pretend that they've never heard of you?
I mean, considering that story in Politico yesterday where David Hogg said that my primary challenge was an exception for funding, I'm assuming there's discussion in other places, but I have no idea. And frankly, I don't care. I'm tired of people trying to play 3D chess on the institution or other candidates that may or may not enter the race. The amount of people the amount of people that have asked me, what are you going to do if Schakowsky runs, or if this rep runs, or if this senator runs, all these things. I'm like, look, I hope this is a competitive primary. I hope more people enter the race. I'm sure I'll have to respond to some attacks or accusations, things like that. But I would much rather focus on the voters and that person-to-person outreach I've been talking about than anything else.
Cool. So yeah, I had some questions about campaign accessibility, but we already kind of got through them. So my next question though was about are you expecting AIPAC's endorsement? Just kidding. So a lot of candidates avoid talking honestly about Israel and Palestine, obviously. And I actually recently, last year or so, had Congressman Mark Buchan on the podcast to talk about his very public fight with AIPAC. They obviously spent big targeting progressive members of Congress last cycle, and unfortunately were quite successful in their targeting. So I'm curious if that's like, is that on your radar? Is that something you're worried about or like preparing for? Or you're just like, I mean, the same answer, like they can do what they want to do and I'm running the campaign that I'm running.
Yeah, they can do what they want to do. I think what we've seen is often AIPAC jumps in towards the end of an election because they don't want you to be able to build up a narrative of like, this is how much money is going against me from one spot. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens in this primary or in the case of general. I think that my strategy also helps with this is, like I said, I want everyone in the district. There are like 750,000 people in this district, but I want everyone in this district to themselves or someone they know have been their lives improved directly by what we are doing. And it's a lot harder to convince a person, even with like 50 ads in a single hour, that, you know, Kat is Satan, if they've actually met me, or if, you know, their child was a recipient of our high school grant program this summer, or if they worked beside us to clean up the beach by the lake, or if you know, we helped stock up their food bank, these types of things. So this would be the strategy, whether AIPAC gets in or not, but I'm hoping that it'll pay off, not just for me, but because I think it'd be really cool to prove how we can bring politics to a more personal level.
I love that idea of like that everybody in the district has met or like 1 degree separated from you. Was that inspired by anybody else, or is that really just like your approach to politics is so personal that like, did you see somebody else do something comparable to that, or is that just like the Kat method of politics? Like, how are you thinking about that?
I mean, there's obviously inspirations. Like AOC did a ton of stuff during COVID, and, you know, going on the road with the Fight Oligarchy tour, tons of progressives have done incredible work in their communities, and I've been inspired, like maybe even more so, by the number of local activists and just community members across the country that have spent the last few years focusing on educating and mobilizing these ideas of mutual aid. But as far as a campaign strategy, I felt like I was copying someone, and I really looked to find a campaign that spent the majority of their money on this type of stuff, and not just in partnership with someone, but like that's where their funds went. And I couldn't. And it feels like this shouldn't be a new concept, you know?
So I've worked a lot of campaigns in my life, and a lot of the cool ones have like done micro versions of that for sure. Like I've been involved directly in like ideating or helping, you know, figure out how to do it. But like, I've never heard of a campaign doing it as such a core, like tenet of their philosophy, which is why I asked, because like maybe I missed it. Like I don't know every campaign that's ever run, and maybe you like saw it happen in real life. But if it's never like, if not, like I certainly, you should put out a white paper or, you know, a tweet, better yet, a tweet thread or a Blue Sky thread. But like just talking.
And like if someone's listening to this and like knows a campaign that did this, please let me know. Like maybe I subconsciously like took that in my brain,
sucked it in, and like are reusing it. But I mean, it's a great concept, and I think again, lots of campaigns do small things for sure, but using it as such a core part of your campaign is a really interesting approach. So yeah, that's why it's outside the digital and very interesting to me as like a campaign strategist. So I'm excited to hear about it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I'm really blessed with, and I mean, it has been because of my work and, you know, my efforts and labor, but I have a big platform, and that's a privilege. And that's why I'm trying to make running for office as transparent as possible. I'm doing a lot of videos about like what it's like to be a candidate and the specific docs you need to submit and all this stuff. But also it shows like, look how successful this event was. Look how many people showed up to office hours. There's this picture of me that I didn't post because it's insane, but laying on the table with all those tampons around me. It's like, look at how many, my campaign manager's van was just stacked to the ceiling with pads and tampons. I wanted him to get pulled over so bad. And so I think that the problem is we waste so much money in elections, as you know. A lot of it goes to these grifty consultants who, like James Carville, I've been talking about him a lot, just like he's catching strays, but frankly, they're not strays. They're well-deserved. And I'm done pretending like this man needs to be at the table. That op-ed a couple months ago, just like, let's do nothing, pissed me off beyond belief. If you look at his Wikipedia entry, it'll be like, yeah, he won 92. He's a prominent strategist. And then the 3 major campaigns that he's lost since. Because nothing is a cookie cutter. Nothing is one size fit all. And we're operating from a playbook in 2005 and it's 2025. And so instead of pissing away so much money on what is essentially a vanity project, for better or for worse, tons of commercials and ads and mailers and, harassing people, we're trying to spend it in ways, or at least if we're spending money for it to double for something else, that help people. And I got someone accused me of bribing voters, which I found hilarious.
Hilarious in this day and age.
I was talking about fear earlier, and fear thrives when people's material needs aren't being met. And more people's material needs are going to go unmet as Trump steamrolls over the country, like you said. And so, we've raised about $400,000 so far. And we want to use that to try to fill in some of those gaps. It just seems like the right thing to do. And I hope if other people get in the race, I'm going to challenge them to outspend us in the community. I'd love it if they could, frankly. If everyone adopted this model, the cool thing is none of the money gets wasted, win or lose. Politics is a billions, in some cases, billions dollars industry. And it's only one person wins each of these races. And some of them have a lot of other people. Imagine if all of us adopted this model, trying to help the community. Like, it's the right thing to do, but if you need to be more cynical, if you need to be more consultancy about it, like, great press, great photo op, like whatever you need to do to get you here, I'm fine with it. But at the end of the day, your donations wouldn't be wasted, no matter who they went to. The community would be better no matter who won. And it also takes pressure off the candidate. I mean, it's so nice to go into this being like, I'm going to make a difference no matter what. And even like our text program, we're trying not to be spammy. If you donate to us, we send you a picture of my cat and say thank you for donating. If you want fewer texts in the future, if you want updates but fewer of them, click here. If you want none, click here. We can't just be doing the same old grifty tactics. People are tired of it. We're all struggling, and we don't need to have our money wasted on someone who either won't win or use it to host some fancy fundraiser that most of their voters would never dream of being able to attend.
I mean, I'm a political consultant, but longtime listeners to the podcast know that I hate all that stuff. I've done numerous episodes with activists and strategists, like trying to break this fever dream we're all living in, where every 30 seconds I get another fundraising pitch from a Democrat I've never heard of. Like, they are destroying the party. That's probably the most outright I've said it, but I say it all the time in different ways. So,
and it shouldn't be a bad word, but like, if you're going to hire a consultant, like for example, Rania Beatrice is someone that's been super helpful setting up this campaign, and her model is literally built on not being paid until you see something delivered. And like, that is great. If I am hiring someone, I've had so many. It was so funny setting up this campaign because I'm technically like a primary challenger because there's an incumbent, even if she hasn't announced if she's running or not. People would literally hang up the phone because they didn't want to be blacklisted when I said that. But as soon as we raised $200,000 on our first day, I got all these emails from people being like, I was with the DCCC for years and blah, blah, blah. And, if you hire me, I'll make this thing happen that I did at this campaign. And it's like, no, you just want to be on retainer. You want to get $5,000 a month, tell me like 3 things that won't do anything, and sit back and schmooze with your buddies. Fuck that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we're seeing more and more folks like you who are saying fuck that, which is good, because like the current system is obviously not working for anybody except maybe those folks that are, getting their $5,000 retainers for, 1 hour phone call a month or whatever. So on the notion of money, so I live in Wisconsin and we just beat Elon Musk. You've tangled with him quite directly. While he did irreparable damage to Media Matters, they are currently fighting back in court, which I was like I'm really excited to be following that story. What what do you wish Democrats understood about his influence and how we as a party should be fighting back against him specifically?
He used journalists and media companies and anti-fascist activists as a dry run for what he is doing to the country right now. When he sued Media Matters for reporting that ads from major companies were next to overtly pro-Holocaust content, he had a huge temper tantrum, threatened a thermonuclear lawsuit, and then sued Media Matters in multiple countries, got Ken Paxton involved, the Missouri AG, and eventually they had to lay off 12 people. And, I could get a job easier than a lot of my other teammates. I was like, I'll be one of those. And then he sicked his followers on me and my coworkers as we're just trying to we're reeling from being laid off. And then in September last year, I get a subpoena to be deposed here in Chicago.
Wow.
A video deposition that is not cheap for I don't know what, because I wasn't a writer at Media Matters. I didn't even work in the daytime. I was a night shift. I watched Fox News. I made my little videos in my spare time on my personal accounts. Literally no reason except I had a large platform and I'm guessing they were like, oh, look at this blonde bimbo. It'll be an easy deposition. Haha. But and it wasn't just Elon Musk and it wasn't just Media Matters. I mean, we're seeing what he's doing to federal workers right now. He's laying them off en masse. He did this to Twitter as well. And in some cases, he's directly attacking some of them by name. And this man has one of the biggest platforms in the world. He's not responsible with it. And it's so frustrating because especially people on the disinfo beat in the last few years, we've been screaming, being like, listen to us. They're going to do this to the country. I did a whole hour-long explainer about white Christian nationalism in Project 2025 right before the election and said all these things already. And if you want to know what his next move is, you can see what he did to my industry before. And it's never going to stop. If you capitulate, that's never going to be enough. It's never going to be enough. You will never out Republican a Republican, and you will never out fascist a fascist. If enough of us stand strong and don't bend the knee, they don't have anything to work with.
Is your campaign on his radar that you know of? Is he aware that you've gone on to this? Okay. I think that's inspiring, way to think about it. And we're seeing it, bits and pieces. People are starting to say no to the bullshit from Trump, and we'll see where it
Harvard
goes.
was like, we got to be the good guy at least once.
I know. when they are the standard bearer, we are in a dark timeline, but we got to have somebody stepping up and saying, no, we are not going to accept this. Which Democrats or orgs are doing it digital right now, in your opinion?
Oh, I mean, AOC and Bernie.
Okay.
It should be easy. It's ludicrous that not every single person in Democratic leadership is begging AOC to lead the party. She is packing stadiums in a non-election year in states she doesn't represent because people are in Idaho.
Yeah, no, wild.
The liberal bastion of Idaho. The leadership is scared of this fight the oligarchy tour because that means they have to turn their back on corporate donors and these high dollar contributors. And that's stupid. It just is. This is the party of the New Deal. It's the party of the Civil Rights Act. We need some FDR style governance here. And the people that are resonating with voters are the people that are fighting back and that aren't apologizing for it. Every major political figure since 2000 in this country has been someone that, not just in politics, but in the culture, has been someone that said, I'm not waiting in line. I'm saying what I believe, and screw you. And for better or for worse, red or blue, that's just been the case. And it's because we're sick of the same old capitulation to corporations.
I assume you want folks to connect with you on Blue Sky. Where else would you like to send folks moving forward to connect with you in your campaign?
If you want to know more about my campaign and what I believe, you can go to catforillinois.com. That's cat with a K. All of my socials are right up there. Blue Sky, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We're working on getting a Twitch icon on there, but we'll report back on that. If you are in the 9th District, come to one of our events. Or if you want to meet one-on-one, let me know. You can drop us a line at hello@catforillinois.com. I will meet any constituent anywhere in the district pretty much anytime. So just let me know. And yeah, would love to see you. And if you're thinking about running for office, do it. If I can help, let me know.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much for coming on, making time to talk to digital during a very hectic time in your launch. But I think it's important for other Democrats to hear how you're approaching this, because I think it's such a like interesting way, and like we need more Democrats approaching like digital while also like merging in field and approaching this like from a place of values. So I hope a lot of candidates learn from you and what you're doing as we move forward.
Look, let's just get a little creative. Let's get a little weird. I've told volunteers, I'm like, if you have a skill that you've always thought could be used in a political campaign but never has been, tell us. We've had cartoonists reach out about making comics, and this pop punk band in Wisconsin was like, hey, can we play a fundraiser for you? And I was like, we'll throw a whole ass punk concert this summer. Let's do it.
Hell yeah.
Get creative, get weird. We need it.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, folks, and I'll have links to the website and the social channels, and they can keep in touch with you moving forward. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Josh.